Hello everyone, you're watching Varp and today here with me is Гэв Торп, also known as Гэв Торп, or the mechanical hamster Dennis. And we're just gonna shoot away and ask a bunch of questions to Mr. Торп here. So, how are you doing, Гэv?
I'm very good, thanks, yeah.
Awesome.
Happy to talk to you.
First things first, it's the question that we ask to all of the people that come to the show, is when did you discover Warhammer?
When did I discover Warhammer? It was introduced to me when I was about 10 or 11, so that would be 28 years ago.
Wow.
So 28 years ago. So it was second edition Warhammer. Well, second edition going into third edition. It was my older cousin had it. So
it's
a little while ago.
It's surreal. Such a long time ago. So it was your cousin who introduced you to the game.
Yeah. So he's a few years older than me, and he was into sort of like the role playing and gaming and collecting the first Citadel miniatures before slaughter bases had been invented. When visiting him, I was. I've been into toy soldiers, sort of airfix and that sort of thing. But so seeing the fantasy miniatures, and then the fact that there are these rules. I don't think we ever played Warhammer. We did play some Space Hulk when that came out, but it was more about painting and collection, really, I suppose, at that time. But yeah, the kind of the universe and the concept of fantasy battle games and things was at that stage. Yeah, so.
So you come from the very roots of it all.
In that respect, yeah, I suppose. I mean, not quite into the 70s. This was sort of mid 80s.
Yeah, well, true that.
But yeah, I mean, when Warhammer was becoming what we would recognise as Warhammer from its early sort of skirmish, sort of almost D&D on the tabletop roots to a proper mass battle game, which is what it became in third edition, really.
It's amazing. I'm 25. I've been playing Warhammer 40,000 for like 5 years maybe now. And I'm as old as Warhammer, but still, this is so surreal. Okay, so we all know that you spent a number of years working for the Games Workshop Design Studio, and you worked on so many different codexes and army books, and you wrote the Inquisitor, and co-wrote, as I get it.
Well, no, Inquisitor. Well, I mean, as much as any project written by one person, then I was the lead developer.
Okay.
And so threw in with other things, like 40K and Battlefield Gothic.
So can you tell us how you got involved in the design process and in the game's development?
Yeah, I mean, it was a matter of timing, really. I left school at 18, and rather than going on to college and studying illustration, which I was going to do, I'd been sort of knocked back a bit on that because, well, frankly, looking back, I couldn't paint and draw well enough. And I'd been writing stuff and developing, just writing games and things for my own amusement, and wrote our campaigns that were playing with friends and stuff like that. So I spoke to Jervis Johnson at a Games Day event in the UK in 1993, and I'd been working on some Blood Bowl rules for Zotes and Bull Centaurs. So and I showed them to him at Games Day, and he quite liked them, and said to send them to him at the design studio. So I did that. I typed up. I was really into epic, sort of like Space Adeptus Titanicus back then. That was what me and my regular opponent played most. So I'd written up a bunch of I think orc rules and things for extra vehicles and stuff like that. Boss mobiles they were called, and a few other things. I've been sketching and coming up with ideas for new races and stuff like that, and kind of watched that all in a big envelope with a covering letter that said, "Hi, I'm Gav. Can I come and empty your bins, please?" That'd be great. I won't do anything. And I was asked up for an interview and got a job as an assistant games developer. I'd been advertised in White Dwarf previously, but actually I hadn't really fitted the profile on the advert. I wasn't a graduate. I was, a bit younger than what they were looking for and stuff. But and they'd found 3 candidates, but actually 2 of the candidates dropped out after being offered the job. So I just kind of wandered along, go hi. I've written some stuff, and they went, right, he'll do, and kind of yoinked me in. I moved to Nottingham a week later and started. That was it. My first job was making mock-up cards for the War Gear cards in Dark Millennium.
Wow, amazing. The humble beginnings of Гэв Торп.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so you worked for how long? Like 10 years maybe on that?
14 years I was there.
14 years, my God, it's quite a long time. And then eventually you quit, and now you're a fully fledged writer. So why and how did you switch?
Okay, well, I suppose the short version. I mean, I've been writing for the Black Library since it was set up.
Yeah.
So, I was in nice timing, unfortunate positioning in that Andy Jones at Games Workshop, when he was setting up this imprint, was sort of like 3 desks down from me, and was looking for guys to write short stories for Inferno magazine. And I said, well, I'll have a go at that. So that's sort of how that began, with Lieutenant Cage and The Last Chances. And when they started doing novels, it decided to turn characters from Inferno, so Gaunt and Malice and all that sort of stuff, into novels, and The Last Chances was amongst that. So I was just able to sort of ride the beginning of Black Library, I suppose. And then, after 14 years, I mean, I've done lots of things. I've worked on 40k, and I was Warhammer Lawmaster for a time, doing things like Inquisitor, and I got to the stage really where what I was doing I'd done before. Really, I could just see more and more of my work was going to be rewriting books I'd already written. I never quite got to write a proper full I did one small Eldar Codex, but I never got quite to do a big one. But
I'm sure you could. You could have.
Yeah, I mean, it was just I needed more challenges really, and also just to sort of various things in sort of my personal life and where I was. I just wanted a break and a bit of a change, so it was sort of time to get out of an albeit quite entertaining office environment, and I just needed a bit more independence really. I suppose the sort of the design things that I've been doing very early on in my career and throughout it were less. So it was much more development, much more writing codexes and redoing the stuff that's come before. And I felt, well, I've kind of done this for 14 years. I'm not going to be doing anything new in that sense in the next few years. So decided to part on good terms with Games Workshop, continue writing for the Black Library and see what else I could do. So that was it really. And then so that was 5 years ago, something like that. And then just been steadily working more for Black Library and doing some other bits and pieces as well.
So, do you still play 40k or fantasy battles yourself?
No. The short answer is no, not anymore. I suppose I used to say up until probably about a year ago. So, well, it's been a while since I played. But actually, I think the honest answer is not at the moment. No, I've still got my dwarves and I've still got my Eldar. They're looking very dated now. They were looking very dated a few years ago, but the last game of Warhammer I had was probably about 4 years ago. We tried starting a Mighty Empires campaign, which lasted one weekend. My dwarves had a couple of battles over that weekend, and then we just didn't quite get together. So, I'm going to sort of never say never sort of approach. I'm not. It's not a decision of principle or anything that I'll never play it again. But I suppose I've just got a different relationship with Warhammer at the moment. I started off playing it, and then I was working on it, and now I'm writing the books for it. So I suppose in some ways, I get my Warhammer fix from my job still. So
Yeah.
But I still keep up with what's coming out and things. But I wouldn't say I was by any means expert in the current rule systems or anything like that. People ask me about, this army balance of that, and go, I don't know anymore. And I'm really glad,
True
it's not my problem anymore. So I just write cool stories about it now, and
That's awesome.
But I still love watching it as well. And last year I was in Washington for an event called Nova Open, and they had a couple of tournaments there. And just wandering around a hall full of people playing 40k and bunch of players with their Warhammer armies out. Still a buzz. It's still cool to see what's going on, even if there was loads of Grey Knights. But there seem to be more Grey Knights in this hall than there are actually in the Imperium.
Yeah.
But it changes and what comes. So I've still got the war games bug, I think, but opportunities are fewer and far further between these days. I keep trying to sort of create, sort of get a table out at the weekend, invite some friends over and stuff, but it's not really just have the time to do a full 40k thing. And if you're not involved in it, if you're not there week to week, necessarily designing your armies and keeping up with it, then it actually becomes quite daunting. There's a lot of changes to the game that have been made in UK editions. I'm almost back to, obviously I understand the principles, but actually in terms of knowing how to play the game and offering it any kind of challenge to my opponent, I'm a noob again.
Well, I'm sure a man such as yourself, you would need only a couple of games to get back into it. It's not that difficult. I'm playing since the end of the 4th edition, and the game changed, but I don't know. It's not that different. I gotta say.
No, I understand. Yeah, it's not necessarily the main game. It's also lots of the things that are introduced in the codexes and all sorts of the war gears, and it's all in the detail, really, isn't it? So.
True.
So yeah, I mean, I'd love to play a bit. Whenever I keep going to events and game stays, they keep trying to rope me in to play games. But my opponents will look like they might actually have a challenge. It's like, no, I'll just be rolling dice on the other side and moving some stuff around. Because I don't really quite know what I'm doing anymore.
Okay, it's awesome. So, you got the Eldar and the Dwarves. I'm sure our viewers are dying to know what do you have in your army. Like, normally when you play the Eldar, when you used to play Eldar, what would you use?
Well, when I used to play Eldar, I had a very infantry-heavy army, really, mainly just for the ease of carrying it, because all of those flying stands and things like that are all hard to pack. So I went through phases, but I suppose it's mainly just a sort of aspect warrior guardian-heavy force. I used to have some Falcons and some Vipers and things like that, but nothing really heavier than that. And I just loved. Yeah, I think for me, different armies have different appeals, and for me, the Eldar is about the aspect warriors mainly. So, I'd have a good selection of those. I always used to run a nice big wave serpent full of howling banshees, until they all got wiped out in turn 1 in one particular game by a stray battle cannon shot. It exploded behind the wave serpent, penetrated the back arm, and wiped them all out. But anyway, I was a bit eggs in baskets, I suppose. So yeah, it's mainly quite infantry heavy.
So it's the footdar, as we call them now,
Yes, that's right, the footdar.
Okay.
So actually be an Eldar word.
Yeah. So and fantasy battles, your dwarves. Actually, I gotta make a little note, and I gotta say that after reading the older editions of the Dwarves Army book, which were written by you, I just fell in love with the dwarves. I cannot say I'm a huge fan of the fantasy battles because I'm more of a science fiction guy, but you are the reason that it's like a little seed in the back of my head. It keeps nagging at me. It's like you should play the dwarves. The dwarves are cool. Play the dwarves. Yeah. Maybe I'm going to get to it someday. But no army's ever finished, so you can't say when I'm finished this army I'll do the next. But yeah,
it's worth. I love dwarves. So my first fantasy army was Empire. Back in the day when Empire could have sort of ogres and dwarves in it, and I realised that I liked the dwarves more than the rest of the army. So I ended up moving to a dwarven army, and just the big blocks of infantry and war machines are nice. They're disciplined. They're not a rabble. They don't run away. They do generally what I tell them to do. Not very fast, but they do it. So nice and dependable. Completely the opposite to sort of in Epic, like I say, I used to play orcs because it's all about the horde and the gargants and things like that. And so in 40k, the Eldar is about the war gear, the kind of the synergy of different squads working together. Different things appeal to me in terms of imaging and game system for the different games. Some people are orcs in Warhammer and and 40k and stuff, whereas I have different things appeal to me in different games.
Yeah, true that. True. So, okay, it's going to be a tough one, but we would like to know who is your favorite 40k and Fantasy Battles character. It could be anyone from the novels or from the game.
Right. Okay.
You can only pick one from each system.
Yeah. All right then. One from each system. My favourite 40k character, although not technically 40k, I suppose, but would be Sanguinius.
Sanguinius. And
Sanguinius
why is that?
I think. We'll have to see how it turns out. But just even as it was traditionally told, I love the arc, his story sort of thing. It's very tragic. This angelic figure, and his descendants kind of tainted by his death. And the idea that, although possibly the most physically corrupted, as it were, by what happened to the Primarchs, he was most spiritually pure. And the fact that even right at the end, even though he knew what was going to happen, he knowingly went, it's like messianic thing about him, I suppose, where he knowingly went to his doom to confront Horus, because he knew he'd have to turn Horus down and would be cut down in turn. But that was his thing. So he's tragic, but a genuine hero. He's sort of like that classical Greek sense of a hero. So, and also he's just a badass guy with wings and all the rest of it. So on that level as well, just awesome.
Yeah.
And in a sort of a universe where there are a few genuine heroes, he was actually one, you know. For Warhammer, a lot more tricky, I suppose. I mean, I guess, you know, having written about Malekith and Alethana and sort of Calador and stuff, they're all quite high up. You know, they're really cool characters. But I think Warhammer, I'd have to go for someone a bit more down and dirty, I suppose. Really, always enjoyed Gracia Thanquil. That sort of Bond-esque, self-beating thing. But in my heart of hearts, I think it would have to be the Slayer King, actually, as a good old dwarf. It's just that embodies that sort of almost ridiculous adherence to tradition, the fact that he's dual lives of Slayer and King, and you know how to do both, because if he does one then he fails on the other and stuff like that. And again, he just looks cool. The idea Slayers are one of the coolest things in the Dwarf army, and actually a king of the Slayers. You know,
Thorgrim is his name. Thorgrim, I think he's Thorgrim. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the one. So, and then it was a cool miniature when it came out as well and everything. So, yeah, I suppose he gets my fancy pick.
Okay, interesting. So, moving on to writing. You wrote a lot about 40K, but it's a question for more of our viewers. Speaking on behalf of all the orc players out there, but not a single novel about the orcs. I realized that writing about sentient mushrooms could be difficult. Any chance of an orc novella from you, Gav?
From me, maybe. Probably not in the near future. But I think we're getting closer to one. There's been, you know, one just with sort of like the Path of the Eldar staff, Andy Chambers' Dark Eldar. There's now sort of Firecast coming out and some more tower novels and things. So the Xenos novel is now in. There's enough of a market there. The writers, you know, there's enough stories to tell. And so, certainly sort of in the Fear the Alien anthology, C.L. Werner, I think it was, did an orc point of view story.
Yeah.
So, we're getting... There has to be a different treatment. In coloured text, in little boxes and stuff, you can get away with the Cockney York speak and kind of, it's all a bit, you know, slapstick. And there needs an element of that, but you can't sustain that for a novel. There has to be a different treatment. And I think, you know, on the Warhammer side of things, just to kind of skew it slightly, there's a novel, you know, Guy Haley's written a novel about Skarsnik, so that's a goblin-centric novel. So the idea that actually you can start telling stories within these cultures is there. So although I'm not aware of there being anything on the schedule, I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't an orc novel within the next year or two. But it won't be by me. I'm busy with Dark Angels, more Eldar, some more dwarves, more heresy, stuff like that. So maybe, I don't know, maybe a short story, maybe a novella, like say.
Okay.
And I suppose it's trying to get into the head of an orc and think, well, what story do you create around an orc which is true to its orkiness, but it's compelling as it, you know, goes past 10 pages just hitting things and trying to be the best. So I can see it working. I always, whenever people ask me if I do something, I always start things clicking away and go, well, how would I do it? And have ideas. But at the moment, no, there's enough on my plate. Doing the other weird aliens as it is.
Okay. This reminds me about one of your Last Chancellor's novels, and this was this particular part where you described how they were fed on that ship in transit, and it was like this, I don't know, this nutrition paste or this blob of something, and I actually tweeted you about this, and I was like reading this, it's just absolutely revolting, but the way you wrote it made me feel hungry. Just I don't know. Yeah, kind of like this. Okay.
I've got to think about food, obviously, because I've got somebody remarked as well about the there being food in Deliverance Lost, and Space Marine's eating engines, and she does that every day. I mean, I like food, obviously, so it obviously creeps into my novels. But yeah, I think I'd turn down the Simply based.
Yeah, it was cool. It was awesome. It was beautiful. Look at me, I love food. So, okay, moving on to Dark Angels. So, as we all know from the Angels of Darkness, I mean, can it still be considered a current fluff? Obviously,
as much I hope so. Yeah, and it's just come out on print on demand, so it's still current, I suppose. And trying to, there's obviously with heresy stuff being published, delving into the detail, but I've been trying now since I've come on board with heresy, trying to keep it as true to the ideas in Angels of Darkness, even if some of the slight details might have changed. But so yeah, I mean, I don't see it. And with the new codex out as well, there's nothing's validated. Most of it's opinion. Most of Angels of Darkness is one guy's opinion of what happened and how he saw it. Certain things happened, and there have been a few tweaks or mistakes depending on whose viewpoint you look at. In the portrayal of who goes back to Caliban and stuff like that, but yeah, well, I think it's still one of the Dark Angels, sort of a definitive Dark Angel story, really, and holds true now as it did 10 years ago or whenever I wrote it.
Yeah, true that. And now expanding upon this question, so how did you come to make Dark Angels and their Primarch Lion a bunch of possible heretics? Don't you think this can alienate some players that their once thought loyal Primarch could be a heretic?
Well, I'm doing a series of blog posts actually on my blog about this. So the thing is, well, there's two parts to the answer. One is that 99% of the time the Dark Angels are Space Marines.
True.
Doing the Emperor's work in aliens in the butt and purging mutants and all the rest of it. And then for 1% of the time, a small part of the chapter, the Inner Circle, the Death Wing, the Raven Wing, are dedicated to a different agenda. And if you're a Dark Angels fan and you believe in their agendas, and the fact that the Fallen are a threat, are nasty chaos followers, then you've got nothing to worry about. You are true in your faith, just as the Dark Angels are. However, if you have your doubts about the chapter, then I think you'd be having a conversation with the Interrogator chaplain soon. And that's
I'm an Ultramarine. Eh?
Yeah. And I think that's the appeal of the Dark Angels to me. And in some ways, the fans of different armies as well. And Dark Angels fans are quite loyal. I mean, they've been very loyal over the years. Obviously, they're getting a nice big codex again and lots of toys. But actually, that breeds a certain kind of fan for the Dark Angels. And when Angels of Darkness first came out, I remember loads of the debates about, is Astalan telling the truth? Is the Lion really was he really a traitor or not a traitor or somewhere in between? And it's my desire, I suppose, my goal with the heresy stuff. By the time we finish doing the heresy and the scourging and the events and stuff, that people are still having those debates. I think if you answer the debate, you're closing off half the fun.
Yeah, true that.
And some people might be sensitive about it and go, oh no, everyone's calling us heretics. You go, well, that's how the Dark Angels feel. And actually, it's a good way of creating the right sort of mindset in yourself, I suppose, feeling that slight paranoia and persecution.
True.
And you go, well, that's how the Lion was, and that's how the Dark Angels have kind of become over the 10,000 years, I suppose. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes forward. Obviously, with the new trilogy coming out, looking in more detail at the chapter even than Angels of Darkness did. So, and Raven Wing's been pretty well received across the board. So hopefully, as the series progresses, we delve more into the ins and outs of how they hunt the Fallen and what lengths they'll go to. But actually, they don't do it gladly. The whole point of progressing into the Inner Circle or into positions of knowledge is this tremendous burden actually for the characters involved. The more they find out, the greater their woes, really. One, because of the separation from their regular battle brothers in terms of what they know, and two, because of the hard decisions they have to make. And hopefully some of that comes across in the way Samuel acts in Raven Wing. And in the second book, it would concentrate more on Asmodai and Saffron. And then the third book would look at Azrael himself, as well as the other slightly less higher ranking characters. So, yeah, I mean, it's great. It's good to have some time to really delve into a chapter in that way. And examine them from different angles and what their priorities and agendas are.
Very interesting. I cannot say I'm a huge fan of Dark Angels because I'm an Ultramarines player and been an Ultramarines player for a very long time, and I got a certain viewpoint on Dark Angels because of my loyalty to the Ultramarines, and they do things differently. But then again, I can't really talk about this because I'm not supposed to know, you know.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I still do, and the thing is, after reading The Angels of Darkness and The Purging of Catalyst, I take him a whole differently now. You know, I don't hate him anymore as much as I used to hate him, and I think they're pretty cool. It's just that they're they're just so different. But
Wayward Brothers.
The Wayward Brothers. But yeah, still, thank you for The Angels of Darkness and thank you for The Purging of Catalyst. Those are awesome books.
Just as not something in mind, but I think as an Ultramarines fan with reservations about the Dark Angels, I think you should, when it comes out, you're going to really enjoy Dan's Unremembered Empire in Horus Heresy. You're reading Heresy stuff, because that's there's quite a lot of Ultramarines and the Lion in it.
So yeah, there you go. I always wanted to ask. Now I got the chance. In the Purging of Catalyst, there was this part where the Sergeant Demand Squad was ambushed by an orc patrol and vehicles, and when one of these scouts, he was lying in the river with a sniper rifle, and he's got like half his face blown off, and his eye popped out, but he still kept firing. How did you conjure these kind of images? You know?
I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm a bit touched in the head. I suppose, one of the things, that particular scene, one of the things, and with the scouts, with the naming and stuff, is I wanted to try and show scouts, you know, it kind of, you ask yourself questions, so you say, well, scouts train for quite a long time before they become space marines.
Yeah.
So, you know, how do they work together? Some of them haven't even had any implants at all. Some of them are almost space marines and things. So that idea, I just wanted to show that, you know, scouts aren't just necessarily, you know, teenage boys given, you know, they're not always soldiers in that sense. Some of them are almost fully fledged space marines, and that idea of that superhuman quality that, you know, if it was a regular spaceman who'd been shot inside the head and carried on fire, and you can kind of take it, but you go scout and go, well, that's because he's almost the regular spaceman of that particular character. But yeah, and it's just, I suppose, there's what would grab people's imagination and their attention, I suppose, and it's an image that you just think, yeah, well, it's pretty unmistakable that these guys are hard, you know, when they do that. And I suppose with Space Marines, it's all about going above and beyond what a mortal soldier can do, and even with the scouts. And so, deliberately engineering incidents like that, I suppose, where they can be superhuman and show off all their mad skills, as it were.
And you did so good at that. And you did so good in that like every time I'm confronted by some player is not a Space Marine, and he says that, oh, you guys, you know, you play Space Marines because of the power armor and blah, 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 and so on and on. And I just tell him, you guys should read The Purging of Catalyst. There was this one particular Devastator Sergeant who explained very well what it means to be a Space Marine. You know, it's not all, you know, ponies and rainbows at all.
No.
It sucks.
Exactly. And you get, I mean, it's part of the fun you can have where you, especially these days when you can trawl through forums and see what people are debating about and stuff and asking questions, and, you know, people are always asking, oh yeah, but why don't the Imperial Guard get bolters and power armor? And it was exactly, you know, it's like, well, I'm going to address that. I'm going to give you my answer through the voice of the spaceman, which is, you don't deserve it. You're not good enough, you know, and which is the short answer. You know, not through any fault of your own, but you're just not. It's a waste of resource. And so, yeah, and you know, with the Dark Angels or anything else I try to write about, try to address issues that are raised by the fans, either light-hearted or a bit more serious, and you know, be part of the debate. Really, you know, people can quote that sergeant if they want to in the future and say, well, this is what the Space Marines or this sergeant thinks. You know.
And I love you for this. So, okay, so obviously, as you already mentioned, we can expect a lot more coming on the Dark Angels front.
Yes, I'm just within the next few weeks. I'm going to start on Master of Sanctity, the second book of Legacy of Caliban. As I say, more so just in the midst of preparing a new Dark Angel short story for the Heresy. And then, yeah, I mean, just this week, a ebook, it's a download-only short story called Battle Brothers is now available from Black Library, which is a sort of a little spin-off story from an event in Ravenwing, where one of the sergeants is left wounded, and the action carries on, and so this story actually shows you what happens to the sergeant off-screen, sort of thing, as he one-leggedly fights his way through a pirate-infested space station. And the apothecary trying to reach him, basically. So yeah, that was good fun. And I'm hoping, I mean, sort of, in terms of things coming up, Space Marine-wise, it's kind of split between some Dark Angel stuff and some Raven Guard. So I've been working on some Raven Guard novellas for the Horus Heresy. I've done the first one of those. There's no release date for them yet at the moment. But that'll be a series of 3 novellas which sort of follow Korax and the Raven Guard. And then hopefully some more Dark Angel Heresy stuff at some point as well. And there's quite a few authors working on Heresy now, so we will have to fight for our release slots and get what we can. So I can't say for sure when that'll be. And then the trilogy of the Dark Angels, but it may carry on after that, you know, if it proves popular, or I might choose to do another event, because it's set at the end of, you know, in the end times, the 41st millennium sort of thing. So the timeline's getting quite cramped around there. So I might go back a bit and look at the Dark Angels from a slightly different time, maybe a bit more freedom to create some new characters and things like that. But we don't know. I mean, that's 2 years down the line from now, so everything may have changed.
Yeah. Okay. So you wrote about the conflict between the Alpha Legion and the Raven Guard in the Deliverance Lost, and is there a chance this topic could be expanded? Hopefully.
Well, I say, I mean, I'm continuing on with the story of the Raven Guard, and there's certainly more Alpha Legion, not necessarily, but there's more Alpha Legion stuff coming up. So what we kind of see over the 3 novellas that I'm penning, we kind of see the fallout from the Deliverance Lost, and the idea there's make reference to the Shattered Legions, which are basically the sort of survivors of Istvan, but also some of the other legions that have been left in pockets and companies here and there across the galaxy. And as guerrilla leader extraordinaire, it kind of forced the Korra to start rallying these troops and turning them into fire. So I suppose the tagline really is Horus should have finished off Korax when he had the chance.
Yeah.
And that comes back and bites him on the ass, really.
Okay, so
one of the questions we have to ask ourselves is, why did it take 7 years for Horus to get to Terra?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons was Korax. Not the only reason, but one of them. So yeah, I mean, I think there's some interesting stuff with the Alpha Legion, and rumours of possible splits and differences between Alpharius and Omegan, and are they, you know, so involved in themselves that they're working at cross purposes, and the involvement of the Cabal or not, and all that kind of, you know, are they really loyal or not? So all of those stories have got to continue to be explored, and they will be explored in the future. And maybe I'll get a chance to do one or more of those, or maybe the other authors will pick them up. You know, it's there's so many storylines really that it's the sport for choice sometimes.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the 2 unknown Space Marine legions. Will we ever find out the truth behind them and their Primarchs?
There's no truth. Well, apart from the fact that they look cool and that, you know, there's room for speculation. There's no hidden truth. Nobody's ever decided who they were and then crossed them out. So the reality is, when Rick first came up with the list of 20 legions, it was based on the idea of the lists of the Roman legions, and Roman legions that had been, you know, performed poorly or dishonoured or whatever were purged from the records. And it's that idea that Legion 2 and 11, nobody knows what happened. And we dropped some hints in the Heresy, what may have happened, you know, and who may have done it to them. But as to why and who they were, there's never going to be a reveal, because actually, a bit like the Dark Angels, in the speculation, the mystery is more entertaining than any concrete fact that we could come up with. It's always going to, for 99% of people, it will be a disappointment if we answered that question. So we let people answer it themselves, and yeah, we can kind of poke them along and get people wound up again by just dropping a mention of them, or
yeah,
you know, statue here or whatever. You know, this one was a woman, or whatever, you know, female Primarch, or whatever it might be. But yeah, I mean, it's a definitive no in terms of will we ever see them or know about them.
Yeah.
I think Cypher falls into that category, talking about the Archangels as well. We want to know more, but as soon as you know more, he loses what it is that makes him interesting.
Yeah.
So although a lot of the stuff I'm writing at the moment kind of revolves around cipher and will sway people's opinions one way or another and add to the debate and argument, hopefully people won't come at the end of the series going, oh right, he is X and he is trying to do this. You know, there should still be the mystery and that surrounds him, because that's what makes his character what it is.
Yeah. I love the mystery, so I kind of thought that nobody knows who they were and what happened to them, because just nobody ever came up, and mystery is a pleasure in itself. So. Well,
I mean, the advantage that there was never an answer is that you never feel tempted to let it slip. We'd have to come up with an answer and then tell people what that is. It's not like they were dropped because we didn't like the idea or something like that. So there's not the hints, or it can only be that they're only hints we're making up as we go along. You know, it's not. There's no hidden truth that we're hinting at, except what each of us, every single writer and every single gamer, we're in the same position of. Well, we have our own ideas, but actually that's all they'll ever be.
Yeah. Okay. More in Horus Heresy. The Emperor is becoming a more prominent character in the Horus Heresy novels. Have you thought about writing a book centered solely on him, or maybe from his standpoint?
Well, yeah, I suppose that kind of ties into the themes of the last couple of questions. So, in that, no, I don't think there will ever be an Emperor viewpoint story. In fact, we've decided there won't be an Emperor viewpoint. But there will be more concentration on the Emperor. If you get a chance to interview Aaron Dembski-Bowden...
maybe. I hope so.
Yeah. You'll scare him horribly and he'll know he won't be able to talk about it. But so the Emperor is every man. He's all things to all men kind of things. He is exactly what he wants to appear to be. Over 40,000 years more. He's been a peasant and a king. He's been a warmonger and a peacemaker. He's been a humble man and he's been a tyrant and all of these things. So he's an enigma. And actually, what his plan is, we can kind of see from the outside and we can get hints at it. But as soon as you step inside the Emperor's head, he stops being the Emperor and he's rendered mortal. If you see what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to see him going, does the Emperor go to the toilet? Well, we'll find out. Or not, and actually, if you get to see inside from his head and know exactly what he's thinking, then again, part of the speculation and the fact that he's this almost just in other perspectives is lost. So there will be more on the Emperor, and certainly going forward, he'll become more prominent. We've still got to cover like the war in the webway, and at some point we're going to get back to Terra, and he kind of plays a fairly prominent part there. So it's one of those, I suppose, where the heresy started at a certain place, quite focused on Horus, and then expanded out to cover lots of different characters, and now we're in a process of the story strands that have all been set up, sort of, all kind of weaving together into a few distinct narratives. And as it kind of narrows again, the Emperor and the Horus are becoming centre stage once more. Mm-hmm. The idea. I mean, not necessarily in one or two books, but over the next couple of years, hopefully we'll get more of a showing from the two, the big bosses on each side. So,
the Black Library novels, are they mostly aimed at the existing players and readers, or like, is there any kind of shift that maybe you're going to try and aim at the new players and new readers, or you guys are mostly aimed at the existing fan base?
Well, I don't know if they've ever specifically been aimed at a particular sort of demographic of the players and things. Certainly, whenever I write, I never assume anyone knows what I'm on about before I start. And it's kind of tricky because, of course, we all know a lot. We all have a lot of knowledge. Even in just a couple of years, you pick up so much of the background and the theme and stuff like that, and even just coming down to simple physical descriptions of things. Mm-hmm. And how things act, how things work. So I always try and make reference of, how Space Marine armor is and how bolters work and stuff. And you don't want to go over it again and again. It's kind of boring for people to know it, but you don't assume that people know it when they pick up the book. Certainly, the Persian of Cadalus and the Space Marine battles, that I wouldn't say entry level, but that because they are Space Marines, which are very much a focus of the universe and a lot of people's entry point. I definitely felt that Persian Catalyst, it was a good opportunity to explore lots of different facets of the Space Marines, the apothecaries, and the commanders and scouts and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, it's structured in such a way that you can jump from one part of the organisation to another and see how they all interact together. But at no point did I feel that I was thinking, well, this is Dark Angels for Dummies.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Because that, if you're trying to aim at a particular audience, the chances are you'll miss. So you just have to write for yourself, I think, in the stories you want to read, and put in the stuff you think is cool. And certainly age-wise as well. People that, if you want to write if you want 14-year-olds to read a book, then you write it for 16, 18-year-olds. Because when I was 14, I didn't want to write books aimed at 14-year-olds. I was reading James Herbert and Stephen King and stuff that was for adults, And so, it's slightly. I think if people think that things are being aimed at kids, that's not true. They may appeal to kids, but they're not aimed at them. And certainly, writing the elder, I found particularly difficult because there's so much sort of layers to their society and the way they work and things like that. And I do wonder, it's hard. You don't really get much feedback on this, but the people read something like this and then at the end of it just go, I have no idea what any of that was about. It's just like, the majority of the people reading it will be aware of the game and the background and things like that. But you always have to have half a mind towards, this could be the first book they pick up. It could be in a bookstore or online, or even if they've gone into a store and they're playing their few games, this could be their introduction to the universe. And I always try to make sure that the context is there for them to understand that.
Okay, thank you. In the Lion story, you killed Nemiel, a very prominent character. Will there be a new Marine to replace him?
Will there be a new Marine to replace him? There's going to be several new Marines. We've got some people think it's a bit gratuitous, and it may have been, I suppose, but it is for a reason, and it will be paid off later. It's not just we didn't like Nemiel, so we killed him. And that kind of forms part of the story that I'm planning at the moment, the heritage story I'm planning at the moment. So, and it's odd because I'm just going back and rereading Descent of Angels for reference and just making sure I get all my Calibanite stuff sorted out in my head before I write the story. So I'm reading Nemiel again as he was starting out and thinking, oops, I know what's going to happen to you. But there will be more characters. And actually, but one of the reasons I'm reading the first two novels again is to make sure that some of the characters that were introduced and have maybe slipped out you again come back. Certain named characters who maybe even only have cameos or walkman parts really. But actually, just to make sure that the stories are going forward are still part of the same continuity. That there isn't. We'll try not to make a thing between the first two novels and then there was a bit of a break and then do some other stuff, but I actually feel that the stories we're writing now still echo back to those events.
Okay. So, will there be a new novel about the Renegades and the further conflict with the Elder Corsairs?
Yeah, I'd like to do more with them. Well, I'd like to do more stories, and maybe they'll play out into a novel at some point. And I wanted to introduce certain characters. So the first one is very much on guest arcs and the leader, and then the second one focuses a bit more on Zacharias, the librarian, and how he ends up sort of getting a demon in his head. And then I was thinking that I'm doing a story featuring on the apothecary, and there's the second in command, who's always looking to make a power play and stuff. So I'd like to build up. It's one way I'd like to build up a few characters and a bit of a following for the story before I launch into a first novel, or it may even just be the case that they're just something fun. Some short stories. I did have up in mind it was sort of laying some path towards doing some Black Legion stuff. Actually, the ultimate fate they're heading for the Eye of Terror. Maybe they run into the Black Legion and it being just like an assimilation of all sorts of random war bands it seems these days. Actually, we get it's a path into the Black Legion. But actually, people enjoyed it quite a lot, so they might be worth charting their own story for longer than I planned. But it'll be a while before I get back to the kind of other pressing stories need to be told first. But yeah, they're not forgotten. I will come back to them at some point.
Okay, cool. Then moving on to gaming. So the fluff changes a little bit, but constantly over the evolution of Warhammer. Obviously, that new players got to be introduced to the game, so the codex keep getting refreshed and updated. So, what do you think about the codices from Matt Ward and Phil Kelly? Well,
opinions. But to be honest, my answer is twofold, really. One, having worked within the design process and understanding the various challenges and pressures that brings, I wouldn't necessarily place every decision made on the shoulders of. The thing is, one guy puts his name on a codex, and you take all the credit and all the responsibility that comes with that. But actually, within that, you are part of a team. You are subject to briefs from management and things like that. So, how much was from Matt? How much was It's as I was saying earlier, I don't play the games enough to comment really on the gaming side one way or another. And actually, I'm not inside the organisation anymore either. So it would, and also actually, he's a guy I know. I worked with him for a long time. I still have a relationship with Black Library. So as mealy mouthed as it would be, I deliberately have no opinion on quality codexes or White Dwarf. I have to step back. I was too involved at one point in terms of it's my job. So actually, these days I just back and think, well, that's cool. He's written that, whether I enjoy it or not, or because pretty much I read everybody's stuff, every author, and you can't switch off your editor's brain. You can't think. I always think, well, I would have done that differently, or I would have tweaked that, or that was an idea that I had but never got a chance to use, and things like that. So the same applies to Matt's books, Phil's books, Robin's books, anyone really. Because I'm egotistic enough to think, oh, I would have done that better. But then generally look at things go, and in another 4 years there'll be a new codex out and nobody will remember this one. I've also learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Phil, I've just been reading the Dark Elder Codex again actually, and I love it. If I'd say, aside from actual Eldar Codex, if I'd written that Dark Elder Codex, I'd be really proud of it. I think as a project, it started while I was still there as a project with Jez doing lots of design stuff. And some of the foundations were stuff, conversations I had, but the realisation of it, and Phil's got a really good eye for not just the detail, but the sweep of the background, the themes and stuff like that. So, I think he's just a quality operator really in terms of game development, and annoyingly good at painting and playing as well. He's not allowed to be good at everything. So. Luckily, he's slightly disorganised.
Okay, interesting.
So I can take my. I can feel proud that I'm more organised than him.
Okay, so I take it you guys are friends.
I've not seen him for a while, but yeah, we're friends as well. Friends with the majority of people I worked with, or at least good acquaintances. I think in a creative environment, you have to get on with the people you're working with. And you have arguments and fights now and again, differences of opinion, and that's kind of very good in a way because games developers should be challenging each other, making each other try and do the best they can, and hopefully there's an environment where you can agree to disagree sometimes. Myself and Andy and Alessa and Phil, and sometimes we wouldn't necessarily see Eldar the same way, or we'd think of all was powered or underpowered and all that. And lively discussion is the best way to sort that out, and actually you get a better understanding of what's going on with the whole game system when you have that sort of relationship. But Phil was always a great guy to work with, so even when we disagreed, he'd always come away from it smiling.
Well, because you guys are both fans of the Eldar.
Well, that really helps, yeah. The 20 years have got to stick together.
Yeah, true. Not too many of you guys out there like this, who love the Eldar as much as you guys do. So yes, true that. Okay, so
great.
Yeah. Okay, so what other games and systems do you play aside Warhammer, if you play at all right now?
What have I played? Not much at all, really. Most of my gaming is board games these days, and a bit of role playing. The miniature stuff. Most of my miniature stuff is self-created, I suppose. I'm going back to my roots in a way in terms of writing some games for myself, which may get published one day, but that's not really my aim. It's just to write some cool games that I want to play. So I've worked on some World War II rules, 28mm World War II rules, and I've got me and a friend are just embarking on some 15mm sci-fi, which is really early days at the moment. We've just got some vague ideas of what we want to do with that. And quite narrative. I'm a very narrative gamer at my heart. I suppose, because that's again how I started out playing, and just kind of making up scenarios on the fly and storylines and things like that. So, which is one of the reasons why it's kind of difficult for me to get into other people's game systems in a sense. I've sort of come up with an analogy, I suppose, in terms of when I started out gaming, I had to make up so much stuff anyway, sort of like Rogue Trader days and things like that. There weren't books and books of stuff that told you what to do or how to collect things, or even, you know, models-wise, you had to do lots of conversions and things like that. So I've always had a very creative relationship with Warhammer 40k and gaming in general. And then I was paid to have a creative relationship with it for 14 years. And then coming out of it, I suppose, I can't quite step back and just be a consumer of it. I have to adapt it. So I might, you know, I know some of the guys like Andy Hoare and stuff who still play, but they play slightly different versions. They might play more narrative 40k, or they're playing Rogue Trader and things like that. Whereas I've just not quite got to that place. I've had to step back and just go, well, I'm just writing games for myself at the moment and enjoying that and having fun and not having the pressures of publishing. You know,
Yeah.
It's become a hobby again, and I just haven't quite got over the separation, I suppose, you know, enough to go back in and maybe start thinking, well, I'm just going to buy this stuff off the shelf and play the game and not fiddle with it. It's hard, you know. It's like a baby that doesn't want me anymore. You know, you're like, it's grown up and it's nothing to do with me, and I don't get to influence it anymore. So it's better to leave it to other people at the moment, I suppose.
Okay, fair enough. So, I know you may be, you're out of the design studio, but still people are asking you this over and over again because nobody really worked for as long as you did on Warhammer. So, you know, well, some people did, but still, you know, we're talking to you, so I got to ask you, how does the Games Workshop FAQ system works? Where do you collect questions, and who actually writes the answers?
Well, these days I don't know. I mean, the way it used to work would be, well, actually, usually the first kind of wave of FAQ stuff would come from the translation studios. Actually, so we'd have the French guys who are translating it and German guys, and they go, actually, what does this mean? We're trying to translate this. So, and if the English, and that has to happen after the English version is finished. It might be a bit different now. So you'd always get a few questions from that. But as for the present system, because there's a very different sort of, so there's a different sort of game development mechanic in place in the way the book's put together and the way it all interacts with the website now and the codexes. So I don't know. I mean, if you really think there's a question that should be on the FAQ, I still think the best way to do it is put pen to paper, post it off to the Games Workshop head office and Games Development FAQ query, and in a physical letter. And they might not get a reply, but you know somebody's going to open it and read it.
Yeah.
You know, we very deliberately didn't have an email system. We did have one for a little while, I think, from our groups of external playtesters and stuff, because they had like a channel into us from their grading groups and tournaments and things. But yeah, I mean, talk about it on forums, you know, bring it up at tournaments, send a letter. You know, it's the best way to bring it to someone's attention.
Interesting. So, out of all the different series that you worked or working on, like be it Dark Angels, the Eldar, the Horus Heresy, which is your favorite?
Oh,
that's a tough
which
one.
of your children do you like best?
I don't have any.
No, exactly. Oh, well, I don't at the moment, but it's been asked a similar question, isn't it? You know, I don't know. I really can't choose one. It's whatever I'm working on, actually. I'm getting quite excited. I've got an Eldar short story coming up, so I'm quite excited about that. But actually, reading through the Dark Angel stuff and the Heresy, I'm just quite excited about the potential for that. The one I really have a soft spot for, actually, and I'd love to get back to at some point, is still The Last Chances, actually. It's my earliest stuff, and it's a bit wonky in places in terms of the writing, maybe, things like that, but I still have my soft spot in my heart for him, because he kind of Cage, because I kind of started with him, and I ended him quite prematurely, really, at the time. Yeah. Looking back now, after 3 novels, I was like, well, I don't want to do any more of this. Whereas now I think, yeah, actually, I could have just put him to one side and then come back to him and more adventures. So there may be prequel stuff, there might be some other Last Chances things, because I miss him now.
So does that mean he's positively dead?
Well, I don't know. He's not good. I mean, he had a...
He's possessed.
There's a deliberate vagueness to his ending in that he could have survived in one form or another. Because I wasn't going to just literally... I mean, I have killed off characters, but he wasn't one. I wasn't quite that dumb to make him definitively dead. And I do sometimes have fantasies about writing a story which is, you know, some guys in the depths of Acheron High have come across this dude, and the big reveal at the end of the story is, haha, it's the return of Cage kind of thing, which I may do one day. But then again, it might be one of those just best left to, you know, never meet your heroes and never go back to your original characters. But definitely prequel stuff on I've got some real ideas for sort of a novella-length story set on iCar 4, so when there was lots of last chances and fighting the Tyranids there. And also the chance of a Colonel Schaefer origin story as well, which I'd like to do at some point, about how he got mixed up in this whole thing. Yeah. So, I just add that onto the list of wish list of things that I may actually do over the next 5 years, you never know.
It must be quite a list, you know.
Well, it is. Well, I mean, I comfort myself with the fact that Black Library aren't going anywhere, so hopefully, eventually, things will get crossed off the list. But there's just so much to write about. And having done it for, you know, like I say, for quite a few years, 15 years or whatever it is, and having been involved with the Eldar, you know, I've got ideas for the new series of Eldar novels, which kind of concentrates on the Phoenix Lords, and has more to do with the Fall and stuff like that. And so it's a matter of time, scheduling, all that, you know, go, well, actually, it's cool. I might not write this in the next 3 years, I might not write it in the next 5 years, you know, I've got to do, at some point down the line, I'm going to be probably writing a Von Carstein Time of Legends trilogy, all this kind of stuff. So, you know, and I'm only going to be, you know, releasing 2 books a year possibly, and then on top of that, stuff outside of Black Library as well. So you just think, yeah, well, I'll have to do that idea in 10 years' time, you know. Not going to run out of ideas and stuff to write anytime soon, thankfully.
That's good. That's good. Keep it up. And the last thing we're going to ask you, if you could say anything to your Russian fans and readers, now is your chance.
Write more books. Actually, thank you very much for the support. Actually, it's been great. You know, I mean, hopefully one day there'll be some kind of event or Black Library related event out that way, so you can actually go and meet people in person and chat to them and stuff. Because that's one of the nicest part of the job, actually. Because being an author, you sit at a keyboard for most of the day typing away. Well, supposedly typing away and writing. And actually, it's really good to get out and talk to people who've read the books or want to read the books and get their take on what their favourite bits were and stuff like that. And I'd be as interested to hear from the Russian fans as I would anyone else.
Okay.
Plus, I went to Moscow once when I was 10.
Huh, okay. I'll buy you a beer once you get here.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm always up for that. I would like to sample a beer from different parts of the world, so we'll see how the Russian beer stands up.
Not too many of them, but I'll buy you the best one around.
That'd be appreciated.
Вы только что смотрели интервью с Гэвом Торпом, одним из самых известных писателей Black Library и, конечно же, именитым геймс-девелопером Games Workshop. Спасибо, что нас смотрели, и let the battle begin.